Congratulations, President Lagarde, with the anniversary of the European Central Bank, 25 years old. First president was a Dutchman, Wim Duisenberg.
Yep.
Do you think the euro will survive another, let's say, 20, 25 years?
Yes, I believe that the euro, 25 years of age, will survive many, many years to come. And I'm saying that because I think that over the last 25 years, it has grown fast. And it is a mature currency. It has grown fast because it went through multiple crises. And every time, some critics were saying, oh, it's going to collapse, it's not going to last. And every time we went through the crisis, we invented new tools, we stayed together, we actually grew, because when President Duisenberg was in charge, it was only the 11 first members. We are now 20. And we've gone through one crisis after the other, and the toolbox that is there is bigger, and we have now expanded to supervision, which started about 10 years ago.
Still, in the Netherlands, as you know, many people feel we lost spending power. After the guilder disappeared and the euro came in, we lost so much money, we can buy less.
I think that's a feature of any country joining a monetary union. I'll give you the example of Croatia, which joined on January the 1st. Croatian people had that same feeling because some of the prices, such as the coffee that you buy at the corner or small things, actually increased. So it was not just a pure conversion, it was a slight increase as well. But if you look at average overall prices, it did not. And I think it is the same phenomenon that we observed 25 years ago in France, in Italy, in Germany, in the Netherlands. But if you look at average price, it did not actually increase. But the perception of people who buy their coffee at the corner was, ooh, I'm not getting, as much as I did in the past.
Let's talk about current affairs. Within a year, you turbo spiked the rate to 3.25%. And are you done yet, is my question. Is this what it is, or will it go up?
I think we covered a large chunk of the journey towards taming inflation and bringing it back to our target, which is 2% medium term. So we responded fast in significant strides, using 50 basis points at a time, 75% once, 25 on the last decision. But we are not done. We still have ground to cover. If I look at my numbers today and the situation today,
it's still way too high, right? The inflation in Europe 7%,
inflation
in the
outlook,
Netherlands 6%, it's really high.
Inflation outlook is too high and for too long. So we need to really bring it back to where we want it, which is the 2% medium term.
So you're not done yet, that's what you're saying?
We are not done yet, we're not pausing based on the information I have today. Yeah. We also said together that we would be data dependent because so many things have gone wrong, can go wrong, that we cannot give what we call forward guidance and say we will do this, then done. No.
Could it go up to 5%?
We have to look at numbers.
Is it?
I don't have a predetermined number in my mind. What I know is that we will be data dependent and we will not only look at models and what they give us, we will look at underlying inflation numbers. What does it mean for people? What are the sticky elements of inflation? Yes. And we will look at whether or not our monetary policy has an impact on the economy and on the inflation.
Let's talk about that. 2 weeks ago, I talked to the president of the Dutch National Bank, Klaas Knot. And we were talking about the wage price spiral in the Netherlands. And he stated, I hear that the unions ask for 10 to 14% salaries go up. But I want to warn them because this could have a damaging effect on the economy. Do you agree with him?
The formation of inflation is what we are looking at. And the source of inflation actually matters. What we have seen in 2022 is that companies, if you will, managed to push cost increase through to consumers. So they did not squeeze their margins. On the other hand, salaries did not go up very much because there were long-lasting collective bargaining agreements that were still in effect. So we are now at a stage where, obviously, unions, employees want to catch up because they have lost purchasing power. What will be critical is how this takes place, whether it's what I call the risk of tit for tat, salary increases, margins maintained, or will corporates appreciate that margins have to be squeezed a little bit to accommodate for the labor cost increases.
Okay, because
and that is something that, you know, belongs to them.
Yes.
And
but
it's for them to decide.
The president of the Dutch bank was criticized because people said, well, you're putting the bill for all these costs on the doormat of the consumer. Why should not companies pay their fair share? Because they're making incredible profits right now.
I think there is a social contract that exists in many of our countries in Europe that should be honored by all participants. And that calls for corporates to, you know, investigate how they include cost increases, how they use part of their margins or not. And it's a matter for the social partners to come to an agreement. But obviously everybody has to participate, not just consumers, not just workers.
So you disagree with the president of the Dutch bank by saying only let's focus on the unions. You are saying no, let's focus on the companies as well.
I don't think that Klaus and I disagree. I'm sure that he would agree with that statement, which is that there has to be an allocation of inflation burden on all partners, and that the concept of the social partnership and the social contract has to be invoked in relation to inflation.
The profits of companies are incredible. Ahold has made a profit of 2.5 billion, Unilever 8.3 billion and Shell 8.7 billion just in the first quarter of this year. Now, this seems totally unfair for many consumers. We are paying so much money extra for our groceries, and the companies who are selling it to us, they are making wild profits. What do you make of that?
I think that everybody has to take their responsibilities. I think there are social responsibilities, corporate responsibilities, and ultimately fiscal responsibilities as well. There are countries in the euro area where exceptional windfall revenues and profits are taxed. Unfortunately, the central bank, with its monetary policy tools, cannot, you know, reallocate, distribute. It's something that needs to be agreed by society, and that includes governmental authorities, corporate unions, consumers, all of them.
What do you make of a company like Unilever that is making profits in Russia? They doubled their profit in Russia, for example, by selling ice cream, cornettos.
I think the Europeans, through the Commission proposals with approval by the European Councils, have taken sanctions. You know, we are now discussing the 11th round of sanctions against Russia, Russian individuals, companies dealing with Russia, countries dealing with Russia. And I think that those sanctions have to be respected. But and I hope this is the case for the companies that you are talking about. Well, I would find it very surprising if they did not respect the sanctions.
Yeah, but Unilever is still operating in Russia and making profits.
You know, those are facts that, number one, I don't have knowledge of. I have full trust in you saying so. But as I said, there are sanctions that have been decided, that need to be implemented and need to be respected.
It should not happen, is that what you're saying?
And then I would say there is a moral compass that people need to have, you know, as a guiding principle.
Right.
But I'll leave it there.
Okay. Let's talk about the banks, because same as for companies, the banks in the Netherlands like ABN AMRO and ING made very big profits this year, handsome profits. ABN 500 million in the first 3 months and ING 1.6 billion. And this is partly because there is a huge gap, because what the banks pay interest rate on people who have savings, and the mortgage rates, who are really high, interest rates on savings low. Now this is something that you can talk about, I think. Is it unfair that there is such a big gap between those two numbers?
First of all, I look at it from a financial stability point of view. And we should feel really good about the fact that our banks in Europe have withstood the test of crisis, to give you an example, when you look at what has happened to quite a few of very reputable Californian banks, or New York State Bank, or what happened to Credit Suisse in Switzerland.
They collapsed. Silicon Valley Bank, Credit Suisse,
quite right.
They're gone.
Quite right. As opposed to us in the euro area, where we have actually suffered a little spillover from what happened, but we have stood solid, and banks are actually better capitalized. There's stronger and broader supervision. We have liquidity coverage ratio. I'm getting a bit technical here, but it means that our banks are much more solid. They're not as profitable as some of the largest US banks, but they are solid. And it's, I think, quite reassuring, not just for me, because they transmit monetary policy, but for the depositors, for the savers, for the Europeans.
This is very clear, but
that's
now
one thing.
Now the consumer. Now the consumer.
I'll come to your question. Is it fair? Is it unfair? I think it is really for the depositors together, and individually in their relationship with their banks, to actually discuss terms and conditions under which saving accounts are remunerated.
But I, as a consumer, have no power to say to my bank, give me more interest rate.
No, I disagree with you. You have the power of saying, if I'm not receiving decent terms of compensation, I can go to the competition, and there is competition.
There is competition, but then I have to go.
It would be even better if there was banking union in Europe. But
are you saying, for example, there is competition? You're right. I could get a higher interest rate on a bank in Italy, 4%, while the interest rate in the Netherlands on saving accounts is like 0.6, 0.7. One bank now 1%. Are you saying, listen, consumer in the Netherlands, there is competition. Go to Italy.
I'm not in the business of giving individual advice. So it's for you to decide what you can do and what you should do.
The question still is it fair? The Dutch Minister of Finance, Sigrid Kaag, has told the banks, listen, raise those interest rates on saving accounts.
I'm glad she did. I'm glad she did. She's right, spot on in her mandate.
Okay. This is for the lucky people who have a saving account. Now in the Netherlands, it is estimated next year that there will be 1 million people below the poverty line in a very rich country. The economic figures are not very good. 0.7 negative growth in the Netherlands, we just heard this week. How is it even possible in this, for such a rich country that it's going downward?
You know, my mission as a monetary policy authority is to make sure that inflation is brought down and that there is price stability so that people can decide to invest, they can decide to hire new people, they can decide to develop activity, they can decide to innovate. That's how I can contribute to the well-being of our societies in the euro area. The allocation, the distribution, the support to the most vulnerable people, the hardship that they suffer is unfortunately something that my tools, the interest rate, are not designed to assist, because I cannot raise interest rates for one category and not for the other, for one country and not the other. It is for the fiscal authorities to actually decide how they can alleviate the burden that falls predominantly on the most vulnerable, because they buy food, they buy transportation, and those two items have gone up significantly.
But if trust goes down in institutions, as we see in the Netherlands, people don't trust their politicians anymore, and they don't trust banks anymore. If trust goes down, isn't that also your problem if people see this huge gap between poor and rich, between very rich companies and people who can't afford to pay their bills anymore from month to month? Then it's your problem as well.
My problem is that Europeans have trust in the euro as a currency, that they have trust that the European Central Bank will do its best to bring inflation down to target of 2%. That is what I can do. I wish I had a magic stick. I wish I had full authority to fix problems across the board, but my authority is limited to monetary policy, and we will do what it takes to bring inflation down to 2%. You know, reducing inflation is of significant help for people, particularly the most exposed, because they are the ones that suffer the most from inflation.
This is a very interesting day because, as you know, President Biden tonight, Europe time, will talk to the members, the leaders of the Republican Party, about a very serious problem, the debt ceiling. If he doesn't get an agreement, then in June, America can't pay its debts anymore, its bills. How worried are you about this situation?
If the United States was to default on its debt, it would be a catastrophic development for its economy and for the global economy.
Also for us.
Yeah, because of the size of the US economy, because of the depth of its financial sector, and because of the totally unpredictable situation that they're facing. So I have trust in the common sense and the civic sense of the leaders to actually reach an agreement, which otherwise would take us into a very, very negative development.
You have looked at the scenario if they don't get an agreement. What will happen to Europe and the Europeans and the Dutch?
We look at scenarios, we prepare for that, but for the moment we hope that they will succeed in reaching agreement. That's what the US authorities are doing as well.
Right. Is hope a strategy in this crisis?
Don't worry, we work on scenarios as well.
Yeah. Last question. The European Central Bank is 25 years old, but is there any cause for celebration if you see all the subjects that we just covered? High interest rates, more people in the Netherlands and everywhere in Europe who can't pay their bills, and companies who make super profits but don't give part of that profit back to society. So the social contract could be broken. That's what you warned for. So is there any cause of celebration?
We have a strong cause for celebration here at the European Central Bank, because 25 years ago we had the objective of providing price stability, of delivering better European sovereignty, and of showing more solidarity with each other. Okay? And I think on those three accounts we have delivered. So as a project, as ambitious as it was, it has delivered. The 346 million Europeans, including my Dutch colleagues, friends and compatriots, are trusting the euro. 79% of them have full trust in the euro. And there are more people who trust the ECB than those who don't trust the ECB. And we'll work on improving those numbers by delivering on our mandate, bringing inflation down to 2%.
President Lagarde, thank you so much for your time today in Frankfurt.
Thank you.
Bedankt voor het kijken. Vond je dit een goed gesprek? Vergeet dan niet te abonneren. Een like of een reactie achterlaten kan natuurlijk ook. Of bekijk een van de andere interviews op dit kanaal.